Yeah, I mean, I think autism in general is uh, probably either. I think it's a mix. I don't think it's just vaccine related, but I think shooting kids full of aluminum and mercury, and then when their brain development is slower, instead of like giving them more structure, we just go like, oh, that's a tough one. Wouldn't want to deal with that. Do you want to give them some pills instead? I think there's a fatherlessness aspect to it, probably too. But
Yeah. Well, I think it's quite it seems quite silly to me to if you notice the rate of increase in something is like thousands of percent in like a few decade period to be like this is not environmental. This is totally organic. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? Like that's ridiculous.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be vaccines. It's just like I know because people want.
I'm sure they play a role. I think it's a mistake to be like
Could also be.
it's all vaccines. As
Could,
much as I think it's a mistake to be like, well, if you say it's vaccines, that's totally because you're a right wing nut job. Like each of those perspectives is unbalanced.
but you used to be a left wing nut job if you said that it was the
Right.
vaccines.
Yeah.
Um,
Just, a mere 10 or 15 years ago.
but
They've gone absolutely crazy, dude.
could it also be that we're not giving children real breast milk and that the fake breast milk has toxic
I'm sure it is because
preservatives in it?
some of that stuff has to do, it affects the IQ of the child. They've done
Yeah,
studies about this.
1000%. And then on top
If you
of it,
don't have like natural breast milk, you have and it's like, honestly, if you really think about it, like if you like zoom out and think about it objectively, it's like obviously
yeah, obviously what they made in a
taking
lab.
like fake breast milk, ingesting that is like probably not the best thing to do because it's not the way God intended it.
Well, because it's not breast milk. That's what I think is that we're losing sight of because it's become so
Never thought we'd
normal.
be talking about breast milk on this podcast, but
It's just one example of many things where, like, I can't believe it's not butter, is not butter. It's something that was made in a
do you want to?
laboratory.
I think we should just list and discuss how many things are not normal that we've accepted as normal and just go on this, see how long we can go.
All right.
Because it is just stuff people never think about, but it's so, I don't know, dude. It's just always been glaringly obvious to me. Like the other day, your acne thing you
Yeah,
brought
yeah,
up.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's completely normal that all of our children are just shooting pus out of their face, just leaking pus.
Yeah, but you were like, you never saw that. And like, look at any historical picture. Nobody had acne.
No, I mean that's how I got my brother, the big historian, to like because he can tell you.
Archaeologist.
Well, dude, he can tell you about fucking pirates, about fucking William. Like, dude, he could give
I'm
you.
not trying to shit talk your brother. I love your brother.
No, he's a smart dude, but he gets these ideas in his head of like, well, when I say something like that, he's like, oh, and I'm like, okay, show me one historical picture from hundreds of years ago. Show me one where the fucking kid had acne. And he's like, oh, well, they wouldn't paint a picture of somebody, with the. I'm like, they didn't have Photoshop. However they look, like that's how you're getting painted. Like that's why everybody was scowling because you couldn't hold a smile, for fucking 6 hours. And he was like, he sat and thought about it. He's like, yeah, you're right. He's like, I can't show you one. Like it's not normal. It's not normal to leak pus out of your face. If you did that 200 years ago, or or God help you if it was further back, they would probably kill you because they would think whatever you have is going to kill everybody.
You'd definitely be outside of the outside of the camp if you were with Moses and the Israelites, dude. For sure.
No, it's just like wild that.
They'd have a priest examining you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, from maybe across the room. Because it's like you have lesions on your face. That's what they would think it is. Like you have lesions from probably fucking smallpox.
I don't know, dude. I think you could just endlessly do this with examples in modern medicine. Things that we've just accepted as normal that are absolutely crazy.
Like allergies. You're allergic to grass.
Right.
How can you be allergic to grass?
My dogs have allergies. But here's the fucked up thing is like I've looked into putting them on, like, you know, those meal plan things where it's like all organic food, or like, my problem is I just don't have time to meal prep for my dogs. I try to get them more chicken, get them like rotisserie chickens and stuff.
Yeah, but even that you have to watch because they're putting
Well, I get it
silicon
from
dioxide.
Wegmans.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
good. Wegmans. Shout out Wegmans, the only place I
Yeah,
shop.
it's just a shameless plug for Wegmans. Yeah. But it's just like the idea that dogs have allergies like humans do, and like nobody's going, like, we just accept that as normal. It's just like, yeah, dogs have always had allergies. Do wolves have allergies? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, dude. This is it's crazy the world we live in.
Yeah, but
Like, people accept this stuff as normal.
yeah, but that's because so back
It's
in
like
the
clearly it's something in the diet or the environment.
but that's actually a great argument between Pasteur and Chomp. That up until the 80s, you were taught that in schools and in colleges. Like there were two different theories about how people got sick, and one was terrain theory and one was germ theory, right? And I'm not claiming that germ theory is false, but I'm just saying it seems like we've completely gotten rid of terrain theory. That there's couldn't possibly be your environment that's making you sick or your diet at roughly the same time that they started poisoning us. They started poisoning the air and the water. They started putting fluoride in the water. They started calling things artificial this. If you can't believe it's not butter, like it's not butter, so what is it? It's made in a laboratory. It's like when they started telling us the canola oil was healthier than animal fat. It's like, well, human beings were eating animal fat for thousands of years without an issue. And now something that was actually intended to be a lubricant for diesel engines.
Right. I was just gonna go. I was gonna cite this, but I forgot exactly what the thing was. But it's food additives, right?
Yeah,
Is it Philip Morris, the cigarette company?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So they started instead of like they found a way to become more profitable by using the waste
Mhm.
from cigarette production, right? Isn't it something to do with that? And then like purifying it, so to speak, and then using it as food additives.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Some kind of preservative or something, some kind of additive or artificial sugar. I forget exactly what it is, but
When we have a
this is like,
Jamie one day, we can pull it up.
right.
You know.
Hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later. Because fucking hate editing this shit.
But no, dude. I mean, it's like so. If your
The paradigm's ridiculous.
yeah, but I mean, just think about it. If your food is not organic, then by definition,
I just don't like the term, the fact that this is my thing, dude, is like, this is why I think people don't understand where I'm coming from or where you're coming from when we talk about politics or whatever. Like, this thing happens where you're like immediately identified as this, and it's like, No, what I'm talking about is like the thing behind the thing. What I'm making a critique on is the fact that we're even talking about this in the first place, because that's how ridiculous it is. Like the idea that we have a term, organic, for what food has always been supposed to be is just not like no artificial shit in it, just food.
Yeah.
That we have a term for it in the first place. The same thing with like when I talk about abortion or something, it's like we're talking about this crazy, like futuristic matrix child death process. You know what I'm saying? It's like we have a term for this thing that like we weren't able to do until somebody conjured up the idea of like, well, how can we get in the out of the consequence of having sex? And then like it's just crazy the world we live in, dude. Like
Well, and the thing that bothers,
superfood.
yeah,
That's my favorite one. Superfood. It's a superfood. Avocados are a superfood. It's like,
yeah, but I think that's what bothers.
just like it's a superfood because it's not a bag of chips or a Diet Coke. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you fucking dude, I just can't.
But I think that's what that's what bothers me the most is the language. It's the language that bothers me. It's you're not killing your own baby, and we could have a discussion about whether or not that's considered women's health care. But that's what it is. You're killing a baby. If your food's not organic, then it is poison. It's poison. It's synthetic.
If it's not supposed to be in your body,
It's a poison.
it's like, is it supposed to be in your body or not?
No, I mean, rocks could be considered a poison. If you eat enough rocks, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a poison. Now, what they've done is that it's going to take about 60 years of Diet Cokes to kill you, but it will kill you and you will be hopelessly addicted to those Diet Cokes until they do, just like cigarettes. And that's what it seems they did with our food is they took the cigarette model. Cigarette's not going to kill you. Fuck it, it's going to take 1,000,000 of them. It's going to take you 60 years of smoking before it kills you, but you'll be hopelessly fucking puffing on them the whole time. Shout out nicotine.
Yeah.
And that's like the cheeseburger, like a cheeseburger, an organic cheeseburger with real bread and real vegetables is great for you. The pink slime ammonia shit that McDonald's was pumping out that they make in a fucking laboratory.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with a damn cheeseburger, dude. Make it, you know. And like, dude, I eat shit. You know what I mean? I work out a lot, so I can get away with eating shit. I'm not trying to be like, look at me, look how good I am. Like,
No,
I'm
but it's
just
not
saying, but
food.
it's like, let's start thinking. You know what I mean? You like, there's nothing, and that's also what's weird is like, then people that get obsessed with nutrition like think all they can eat is like rice and chicken and stuff all the time. It's like,
Yeah,
no,
that
like,
rules.
dude, if you have bread that's like not pumped with bleach and like additives and stuff to make it like last forever, I'm not joking, dude. They do.
I know, yeah, they
this.
bleach the fucking flour.
I'm not joking. No.
I know you're not.
And if you have like a beef patty that's like, you know, it doesn't have a bunch of hormones and like additives and stuff in it, and you have cheese that's like
Raw milk,
somewhat
cheese,
healthy, and
probiotic.
you don't pair that with like maybe you have some vegetables or maybe you like make some fresh cut fries and you don't pair it with like the meal isn't excessive in calories, you don't pair it with a giant Coke or ice cream.
If you don't pair it with
and
poison,
like you there's nothing wrong with eating that on a daily basis actually.
even ice cream's not bad to eat if it's just
Like, you know, watch the calories and watch what else you're eating and what's in it. That's like, it doesn't have to be that complicated. It doesn't have to be one thing or the other.
no, but
is what
even
I'm trying
like
to say.
the calories.
It's like, let's just start thinking. Can we start thinking about things?
Just eat food. Just like
Let's just, you know, God gave us the gift of discernment. Let's think about things. Like, you don't need somebody else to tell you this,
right.
you know, and you don't need to like conform to the subscription of like all super nutritious or, you know, whatever the alternative is, which is like, let's not pay any attention to it. Like it, you know, we can just think.
Well, I think the problem is that what you get into is that then again people polarize it and they go, well, there's no way that they're knowingly poisoning me, right? And if you're trying to say that they're normally that they mean to poison me, then you're a conspiracy theorist, right? So you're either you fall into one of two
I don't
categories.
think you can make the case anymore that it's by accident, though.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like they say, oh no, this red 40 totally safe until like 20 years later. It's like, it killed some people. We're going to take it off.
And I also don't buy that it's like, you know, most people would be like, well, they're knowingly, in a sense, poisoning you because what somebody up in the hierarchy of a corporation is trying to do is cut costs and like be loyal to their shareholders. Like I don't think that fully explains what's going on. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
I don't think that's a sufficient explanation for why it has become normal that everything you find at a grocery store is poison. You know what I mean? I don't and this is the thing is like I just don't it's with everything, dude. It's very weird to me that it doesn't seem to strike anybody as odd that the rate of every single chronic or acute illness is increasing astronomically. You know, every like new year we measure it. That it's normal for what are the statistics on cancer? It's like 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people will have cancer in their life or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
It's like pretty high. It's like everybody knows multiple people who have or have had cancer or have died from cancer. That is not normal. That's not, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
like
but
to think that like, oh, the world's always been this way. No, it hasn't.
No.
It hasn't. And it's so normal we don't even like stop to think about.
Well, because what is it going to do? I mean, psychologically, it shatters. If you live in like a nice bubble where like your doctors mean well and everybody means well and everybody's doing their best and nobody has any ulterior negative motive, right? And you start to see that like actually you live in a system that's kind of designed at this point to poison you. Um, and that when you get sick, they're not going to heal you. They're just going to treat you, right? Because what's the best thing that you can be in this country? What did we all get told? The best thing you can be when you grow up is a doctor, right? It's like supposed to be like the highest level of education, right? You go through it's a rigorous process. You get out, you're a doctor, you're saving lives.
Yeah, doctors, they help a lot of people and they make a bunch of money and who, you know, it's like the best of both.
Yeah, and it's the
Both
best
worlds.
thing you could be.
What could be better? It's my thing though is like this is why I say people just need to like use their gift of discernment and think for themselves. Like that's actually I think that's a responsibility we have. And I think it actually like communicates this. This is like the way it reads to me when I read some of the things that Jesus is talking about and some of the parables, like the sower and other things. Like I think like one of the things that modern Christianity is missing is the truth element of it and like we have a responsibility to uphold truth because it's sacred. Like that's not something that you can achieve if you've lost the ability to discern and think for yourself. And I think we have a responsibility to do that, to just become the type of person that can do that. Because what happens is like doctors are a perfect example of this. Let me just like I don't know, with anybody that has half a brain, I think has kind of begun at least to come to the conclusion that any doctor, right, that is still like recommending you get a COVID vaccine
Yeah,
or a
COVID.
booster
Yeah.
is out of their fucking mind,
Yeah.
right? So I had a doctor recommend that to me. Uh and I think she's up until that point, I was like, she's kind of bitchy, but in a way that's like you kind of like it cuz it like insinuates that she's competent. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
I like that from my doctors. Like I don't that's just me, that's me a personal thing, but she recommended that I get it. And this is the thing is like I don't think that your intention has to be to engage in something that produces evil for you to do so, for you to contribute to evil. Like I don't think it has to be your intention, you know? I think that that's something we do if you don't, for example, if you're a doctor and you listen to all the medical propaganda coming down like through the grapevine and you don't go read the studies for yourself. You just like, I'm just going to listen to everything I read in my medical textbook and, not think for a second that there have been pharmaceutical companies have played a role in funding how those things were written and put together and what we're taught. And I'm just going to listen to everything and not go read studies on COVID vaccines or not go read a VAERS report or not investigate any of those things. It's like the outcome's evil, whether you intended it to be that way or not. And it is because you didn't think for yourself, you know? Like,
Yeah, no curiosity at all. And I think
and like
it's laziness too.
curiosity is an element of it too, but it's like this is what the word discernment means is like there's like I think God gave us an intuitive sense to be able to detect when things are wrong, like when there's something
A
we
misalignment.
butt up against something
Yeah.
in a spiritual sense and there's something wrong. This is what discernment is, you know? And I think the world that we live in today, some of this stuff I think is intentional and some of it's organic. I think it's a combination of the two things. But like, if we believe the Bible and we believe what our religion, says is true, we believe the narrative, then like there's a battle. There's a war between good and evil. And I just think it's very clear to me that the state that we're in, like the state of modernity, currently is that everything's set up in a way so that we're unable to detect on a deeper level, so that we like almost there's too much data and information in a material sense floating around and being thrown at us, and we're too deep in this paradigm that we're almost unable to discern things anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean that's maybe done on purpose, maybe not, but it's
I think it's both. I don't want to be one of those people that's like
yeah.
everything's a conspiracy.
Yeah, but I mean
But
it's
to be like there's too
nobody.
much going on, right, for it to be like none of it's a conspiracy.
Yeah, but
Like
that's
both things are ridiculous.
but nobody can agree on anything because there's so much information supporting everything. That's why you have people saying the earth is flat.
That's why, yeah, right. That's why Democrats and Republicans alike are out of their fucking minds.
No, because I can go online and I can find articles and whatever to support both sides on any issue.
You know what's fascinating, dude? The I didn't know this, but the degree to which conservatives right now are like, I don't know, ass grabbing Elon Musk is crazy, because the clips that we've had get the most views on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
It's not doing anything anywhere else, but because I think Instagram shadow bans shit. That, and like anybody that follows me is sick of looking at them. But TikTok will like, Instagram does it discreetly, and TikTok will like flag shit openly, and then if you appeal it, they'll like put it back up. The clips that have gotten the most views are because it's pissed some crazy MAGA dude off, and he's commented a bunch of times. Like, Republicans are out of their fucking minds right now in this like idolatry of Trump and Elon
Well,
and Doge and like all this stuff. It's like, dude, I don't like, I'm a conservative, right? But there's a serious fucking problem if you can't. This is how the left got to the point of like, the gay marriage thing, which I don't agree with anymore, got to the point of, now kids are changing their genders and we're not saying it. It's because the left didn't say anything about it. So like, if we don't want, we're supposed to be loyal to truth, not to a fucking team. So if we don't want to end up in, another Holocaust at some point, which is like very possible, regardless of which political party produces it, I think they're both very capable of producing it at some point if we go another couple decades down this road.
Oh yeah, they're so radicalized.
Like, our job is to, everybody's job as human beings is to be able to like see truth. And it's like even more important for people like us as conservatives to call out conservatives when they're being fucking crazy, because a lot of them are being crazy right now. You can have differing opinions on like you and I have theories about what could potentially be going on, and other people, um like, I can have that theory and still support some of the policies they're implementing because it's the opposite of making this country more chaotic. But I just think, you can't, I don't know, man. Just conservatives, if you're like a conservative Christian, you're like, we need to go back to a conservative Christian country, but you don't read your fucking Bible. Like, it's clear to me that you don't, because you don't understand that what you're doing is making idols out of all these things.
Well, and I think,
And that's like what we're not supposed to do.
People just can't be honest. And like, there's intellectual honesty, and intellectual honesty just means like, you could have voted for Trump, but like not voted for giving a private citizen access to the entire federal government and the ability to just completely fire people on a whim.
Yeah.
Right. And then we have planes crashing into each other, and he can blame that on whatever. And meanwhile,
But yeah, there's enough information on both sides to craft multiple narratives for one situation.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, at the core, like, we can argue about the results and how everything happened. But the bottom line is, should one man have all that power? Right. And the answer is no, because we have a government that's incredibly too powerful. And the only thing that's kept it reined in is the fact that the forefathers had the foresight to go, no one area of government should have too much power.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea was that if the government has too much power, it's going to get rid of our rights, But like, if you're a Christian, you should basically believe that like everything that you need on the planet for you to live a good, healthy life is on the planet. It's all natural. It's all organic. It's all here. All of the medicine and things that you need to live a good life are all produced by the environment that God gave us, that we're supposed to be stewards of and have dominion over, right? So when your doctor's saying that they just created some new chemical in a lab and that's supposed to be your solution,
They fast tracked it to.
yeah, fast tracked it, yeah. I mean, your red flag, like your discernment, a little buzzer, I don't know, in your head should be like, that doesn't seem like the right thing, right?
Well, like on a primal level, you should have a reaction to the prospect of forceful infiltration of your body with a substance that's
That
inorganic.
that also has aborted
Like
fetal
that should
tissue.
you should
Yeah.
have like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, almost all vaccines have aborted fetal tissue in them.
I'm sure they do.
I mean, but if you look at it through the
They
lens of
need the
spiritual
babies to make
warfare,
vaccines.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at it through the lens of spiritual warfare, it's like the most successful pro-Christian, the most successful Christian society on the face of the planet is now being poisoned and injected with murdered baby cells. They're poisoning the air. They poisoned our water to lower our IQs with fluoride. And now the Christian side of the aisle, the conservatives, are now arguing for why one man should have complete and utter control of the federal government's checkbook.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they were just the people arguing for like states' rights, small federal government, and no one man should have all that power.
That's what I mean is I think there's a little bit of a problem of going, I'm going to vote for this person in the first place. Because, like, what you should be doing, regardless of which side you're on, is voting for the values. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
would, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
1,000%. Yeah.
and I think this is like so simple. I think this little thing here is so simple. It's just going to go right over people's heads, honestly, because it's like, I just don't think people have ever, anybody that's alive to potentially listen to this podcast has ever lived in a world where it wasn't like, we're voting for this person.
Yeah.
That's not like, there's not really anything that's Christian about that. Like, you should be voting for whoever is representing more of the values that align with God's word, right? And that's how I voted and why I voted for Trump this election.
Yeah, but they also get you,
Um,
right? Because Trump as a person, he's a fucking dick. You
yeah,
know what I mean? It's like he's not the embodiment, not that we are either, but we're not running for office
right.
in a supposed Christian
We're also
nation.
not pastors.
Yeah, yeah. But we're not pretending to be, right? The whole notion, like the whole point of this, like I guess the shock value of it is that like this is a conversation that you and me would have if the microphones weren't here that we've
Yeah.
had for forever, right? That
That's literally what we did is we just decided to start having the same conversations we do anyway with microphones that we already had and a camera rolling.
yeah, because
So,
the idea is like these forms of discussions, if they were more mainstream and people were talking about these kinds of things, maybe over time, maybe years, decades, maybe we wouldn't be in this situation.
yeah.
Maybe they wouldn't be poisoning us, because at a certain point, and this is where like the big head in the sand thing comes from that I've gotten from people once they like started to notice too much is like, well, if all of that is true, Like, what are we going to do about it? You know, it's like a head in the sand. Like, I don't want to know about this shit, right? Because the reality is what comes next, logically, is a revolution in people's minds.
which is also not good.
Yeah, but there doesn't need to be a physical, like, gun
No, it's what
revolution.
I was saying just about the taking up your cross thing. That's like the
A
point
spiritual
I've been trying
revolution.
to communicate is like that's part of what that means is like it doesn't take everybody dying for something or like actively getting involved in a conflict, but it does take everybody being willing to in order to stop evil.
Yeah.
And that's the part of like the Christ motif that's not really being communicated. Um and neither is the tyranny element of it or the truth element of it. And I don't know, man, like that's the way the Bible reads to me kind of is like I just think that's what it's saying is it's you know, like if we believe this is the eternal living word of God and there's a creator and he divinely inspired the writing of a canon of texts. Like God exists outside of time, right? Or else he wouldn't be God because he created time and space to begin with, right? So if he has a message that he's going to communicate, it would be a message that's eternal and can be applied to any society in any part of history. Um I just see like when I read it, I see the tyranny, I see the truth. I see I just don't hear really anybody talking about this stuff because it seems like before they're able to, they get caught up in the political rigmarole.
Well, I think there's a lot of Christians that
It's like,
accept the Bible. And I know I said this before. I'm probably going to say it every podcast until I don't know when, because it keeps ringing in my head. There's people that believe in the Bible, believe in Jesus, they go to church every Sunday, and they still believe in evolution,
yeah,
right? They still, but the two things can't both be because, and this is the danger of like letting your kids go to public school before you take them to church and they learn about Jesus and letting your 3-year-old read about dinosaurs is that like if we are just evolved monkeys, then what's the point?
yeah.
If we're just a bunch of people acting on our impulses, right, then what's the point? And if there were dinosaurs and we evolved from monkeys, well, Jesus, that might have happened, but we're just evolved monkeys after all. Everybody's just acting on their like it defies the point. It like both can't be true.
The problem is anything that's not aligned with God is like it can be any varying level of truth. But you know, like evolution, parts of that idea are very true. Like there's merit to the idea of adaptation. There's
Oh yeah,
merit
yeah.
to epigenetics. Like we're figuring these things out, right? So it's not like there's no merit to it, but it's like, you know, the story is that there's a war between good and evil and like, you know, the good side has the ability to create because it's God and the other side doesn't. So what's the other side going to do? Well, it's going to have to counterfeit God's creations to lead people away from that. And that's what I mean is like there doesn't seem to be much discernment of this phenomena because, you know, when I look at the world, I see Babylon. Like that's what I see is it's like with politics, with um, religion, with everything. The longer we go down this like material trajectory, the more everything's like a half truth or like a, you know, would pass inspection counterfeit at face value, you know, like
Yeah. I can't believe it's not butter. But that's, I mean, it's connected, isn't it? Right?
well, I mean, if you that's the thing, man. If we believe the Bible, right, is God's eternal living word, then
Hmm.
like everything that's in there is in there for a reason. And everything that's in there is also in there to illustrate the point that these are like narrative themes that will play out until the end of time over and over again. You know, it's like so I just don't that kind of creates this necessity for whether we're conservatives or not, like which we are, for us to not make a false idol out of the politician who happens to have gotten in office and evaluate them on the basis of a biblical lens, right? There's this thing where it's like, and I think that's I'd like to like go more in depth about this at some point, like maybe do an episode about it. There's it seems to me like what happens in modern Christianity is people read they project the modern materialist worldview onto the text and they read it and relate it to modern life, which I think is backwards of the way it was intended to be read, the lens through which it's intended to be read. And like again, if God is God, then he by default exists outside of time and space because he created those things. I think like the way it's supposed to be read is we're supposed to view the modern world through the biblical lens, not the other way around. That's how you get to the point where there are Christians that, you know, think they can believe in evolution or think that uh, supporting abortion is okay. And they can simultaneously do those things while being a Christian. Now, everybody's sinners, right? And like we are, everybody's at a different point on their path of consecration and a different point of like if you believe those things, what I'm trying to say is that doesn't like exclude you from a relationship with Jesus. But I think like I would begin to question at a certain point if you purport to have a personal relationship with Christ and you purport to be, you know, a born again, Holy Spirit filled Christian, I would begin to question at a certain point the degree to which that's true if you still view those things as acceptable because they're in direct conflict with God.
Yeah. I mean, again, back to language. If, and, you know, I get that it's indoctrination, like, and people suffer from that. I'm sure I'm indoctrinated on certain things that aren't true that I blindly believe are true because
Yeah.
that's what I was taught. But again, if we if we changed the language and started calling things what they are, it would be harder for somebody to call themselves a Christian and pro killing babies,
Yeah,
right?
change the language back to what it actually is. Yeah.
Because that's the thing. People aren't realizing that, like, the language that you're talking about, whether it's your food, whether it's your health, whether it's abortion, whatever, they have changed the definition of words outright to deceive us,
Yeah.
right? To keep us deceived. Because as long as we're arguing about women's health care, we can keep killing babies.
So
So,
when we say the word they, I think we're both respectively referring to, we're not like Illuminati. Like
no,
what we're doing is referring to people who have allowed satanic evil influence to operate through
yeah,
them.
demonic influence,
And like
anti-human.
there are two sides, good and evil.
Yeah,
So when we say they,
talking about evil.
yeah.
The forces of evil have done this, right? Whatever, whoever was involved, it happened and it is evil. And somebody, and we went along with it. We all went along with it, right? For as long as we did at varying degrees. But
Yeah, I did.
yeah, but the truth is that, like, if it's not organic, it's not food, right? You shouldn't eat chemicals in a lab. It's not food, that's poison, right? I mean, the list goes on. Chemicals in a laboratory is not medicine, right? If you're sick, it's probably your diet. It's probably lack of exercise, lack of sunlight, lack of, nutrition, right? Chances are it's not the lack of some chemical that they designed 2 years ago,
Yeah, it's pretty obvious.
but
Yeah.
like, we don't think of it that way because we're calling toxic shit medicine and food, right? Because we are at war and they don't care if you don't call yourself a Christian. They're going after the most Christian successful nation on the planet. And that should tell you, right, which side is right. If we're the ones being attacked, if there is a spiritual war, if we're correct, and it seems as though we are, right, because the most successful Christian nation on the planet is being poisoned and drugged. Our children are being mutilated and murdered, right?
Yeah.
It seems like there is a spiritual war.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
this is what became clear to me is I saw all the biblical elements, like the narrative themes, for a very long time in my life, and then I began to investigate the Bible a little bit, and saw that particularly in the Old Testament it's talking about these very things that I saw. And then it also became clear to me, I had some personal exposure to witchcraft, not explicitly witchcraft, but occult practice, which is very normalized in our society. Like a lot of people are practicing witchcraft that don't know they're practicing witchcraft because they're engaging in processes that are opening doors to another realm. They don't really know they're letting stuff in, but I was exposed to this through a person I dated, and it became very clear to me that, and you started to see this like around the same time with pop culture, that there was this very explicit adversarial element to Christianity and Christ, which, like, it's kind of like that thing with like when I got into 12-step programs and did, like, the fourth step, my first fourth step, and like you make an inventory of like all the harms you've done and like resentments you have, and like, like I had this big resentment towards God my entire life, and it's kind of like the same thing there, where it's like, well, how could you resent something that you don't believe in? So it became clear to me over the last couple of years that if there seems to be evil in the world, like it's very clear that like evil's, it's not just like a thing that happens, like it seems to be an intelligent force that has a motive to like destroy and deceive and harm people for the sake of just doing that. I started to notice that, and then I started to notice this correlation between that and kind of like an adversarial stance to Christ and Christianity. And, so I like, you can make the case that if you're like, there's something going on there. So,
For me, it seemed very obvious there's evil in the world. And it seemed very obvious that all the richest, most powerful people are all involved in these secret societies. And all these secret societies kind of do the same things. They do these weird rituals. And it seems like they believe in it. And for me, I noticed you can't be Christian and be in Hollywood, can't be Christian and
yeah,
be a news anchor. But
you,
for me, it kind of clicked like, but there has to be, at the time I was thinking equal and opposite force in the universe, right? Because I hadn't fully accepted the Christ thing yet.
right. If there's power in what they're doing and they're directly opposed to something, then like maybe what they're opposed to actually exists.
Yeah, like, well, there has to, like, so I was still looking at it trying to from like a scientific
Right. Well,
point of view.
I had to
Yeah.
materialize myself into it also.
Yeah.
But
So I was like, there has to be something equal and opposite. And that's when I went on I'd already explored like Buddhism a little bit and Hinduism. And I'm like, yeah, but they all seem to like miss it, and then, the Islam, that seemed okay at first. And I was reading it, but like from a scientific perspective, right? Like, well, if every man had multiple wives, like that's not nature, right? There's almost an almost equal amount of men and women on the planet at any given point in time. Birth rates are just about 50-50. So you're just telling me that a certain portion of men just, they're not, nope. No, it just wouldn't work like on a grand scale. That, and you're allowed to have sex with your first cousins, which has produced awful results. And I went through the Jews, and that brought me back to Christianity, right? Because, well, why don't the Jews accept Christ? Like, what? So, what's that all about? And when you read the Bible, you realize more or less like it's only Christ, like the only good operating force in in the world, truly good, not mostly good, not 99% good. The only truly opposing force to evil in the world is Jesus Christ. It's the salvation, because we're all dirtied by this world. We're all muddled in sin. Every last one of us, it's inescapable. We live in Babylon. So, I mean, there's a form of forgiveness in all of these things, but it doesn't seem like, and by things, I mean all these different religions, like there's some form of forgiveness, but it's not,
yeah, but you get it through your works.
yeah,
You get
which,
it through the things you do, not through grace.
yeah, and I tried that.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't work. That's what I mean. Well, that's what,
Because the thing is, and somebody explained trauma to me this way, I'll never forget it. Everybody starts out, they're a nice clean sheet of paper When you traumatize somebody, you crumble it up. And then that person has to stretch themselves back out again. They will never be rid of those lines by anything any human can do. Right? Wherever somebody folded you up, wherever somebody crumpled you up, no matter what you do, you can try to steam it, whatever. That paper will never look like it was before it was crumpled up. Right? It's nothing man can do. And that's
It takes something supernatural.
supernatural, yeah.
Yeah.
And the most supernatural, and this is where we get into legalism, like how can you prove something? And like the entire structure of like legal governments and court systems and all that is based on testimony.
I think so I would say that you can't as final conclusion, but I think the way I had to like come to Christ was realizing that the way of being, embodying the way of being that's counter to it, or attempting to legalistically prove that it's wrong or to save myself through my work, like everything that I tried didn't work. Everything that was counter to it. So if you go through like 30 years of your life trying to prove any other way but this one way will work and none of them do, you can like begin to make the case that there's something you're missing. And then I think I think for everybody it takes a different degree of desperation to get to, but at some point it sucks enough that you just go, all right, well, I give up. And you turn your will over and invite him in.